Nothing in your life comes from the conscious mind. There's someone in my head, but it's not me. What if the world you think you chose has been choosing you? Let's pull the thread. The subconscious mind accepts whatever is printed on it. All your thoughts are energy. Hello, good day to everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for everything, the support we've received on our social networks, here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. We truly appreciate every positive comment we've received. Really, thank you so much. I took a little longer to make this video because I wanted to structure it well. I wanted to make it as simple and understandable as possible, but complete and well-grounded. And well, as you requested, today I want to talk about one of the best uses of a Metayantra Pranic Device, programming energizing water with a device. You can program it with any positive intention you want, whether abundance, health, or a vibration in itself. Intention is the main purpose we'll work with here. But, as always, first I want to explain all the foundations and arguments for why this works. I could hand you the instructions on how to do it and just say, it works, and that's it. But I always like to ground everything so it's clear and you understand not only how it works, but why it works. If official explanations left gaps, let's fill them carefully. And I do this because there are indeed scientific foundations that validate it. In this video, we're going to mention several scientists, some not so recognized by the mainstream, but they're still scientists who help us ground all of this. The first one we'll mention is Masaru Emoto. Perhaps some of you have already heard about his research. He participated in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? In Spanish, ¿Y tú qué sabes? A film that began to bring quantum physics into understandable everyday terms, opening the public's interest in these topics in a more digestible way. He's one of its most notable participants. The first thing he considered in his studies was that water is the most receptive element of the four main elements: earth, air, fire, and water. It occurred to him that water could also react to non-physical effects. So he designed an experiment and, through thought stimuli, decided to alter water. And after freezing it, since freezing forms crystals in the liquid, he photographed them with a dark field microscope. That's what it's called. And the results are, yes, surprising. This photo I'm going to show you here is from the Fujiwara Dam in its usual state. This other photo is of the same dam, but after receiving a prayer by a Zen Buddhist monk. And he continued in this way, taking photos of water. For example, this is distilled water that he placed in jars with printed words. The important thing to know is that what is most printed in the water, so to speak, is the intention he gave each jar. Not so much the word itself, but the intention he was giving to each word and each phrase. For example, this is the one with the word gracias, thank you, from the same distilled water. Imagine if the power of intention is strong enough to change the molecular structure of water and, when frozen, generate crystals with certain geometries and patterns. What can it do to us, to our physical body? Consider, for example, that the brain is 70% water, and that the brain plays a very important role in our lives. In fact, it's a main topic right now in this video. I must say that science still doesn't explain why this happened in the crystals, but there is an effect. The evidence is there, from Dr. Masaru Emoto. If there is no explanation, why is the effect repeatable? File under uncomfortable data. What we can say is that words have effects on people, on us. Especially negative words. They affect our emotions, just as positive ones do. And that's what I'm telling you. What matters is not the word itself, but the value we give to the word, or the intention the doctor was giving to the word by putting it on the jar. It wasn't just writing it without feeling the emotion. For example, this photo I'm showing you here is of a phrase that Dr. Masaru also used to test disharmony. The jar says, "You make me sick and I will kill you." And we can see that yes, a total disharmony is generated in the water's structure. Let's say it isn't in an ordered state, simply disordered. There's a phrase by Masaru Emoto that caught my attention. One that's comparable to some of Tesla's lines that carry a hidden message between the lines. The phrase says, literally, water is the mirror that has the ability to show us what we cannot see. It is a model of our reality that we can change with a single positive thought. All it takes is faith and being open. I think there he's already talking about how our reality is molded and our life itself and how this can happen. I've already told you that science has no certain explanation, but let's try to give this a bit of logic, to use our logic and identify points that can ground the reason why this happens, formulating a theory, so to speak. First of all, we must consider that all your thoughts are energy. Consider the video where I explain the operation of the coil and how this coil is capable of generating a magnetic field and electromagnetic waves. We now have to consider that our brain is made up of more than 14 billion neurons, and each of them generates electrical impulses, that is, electrical currents. And these currents or signals are sent to more than 100 neurons every second. Each one sends 100 signals to one of the other 14 million, and obviously this generates a magnetic field. Maybe the currents aren't strong, but there is a magnetic field present, and quite complex. That's why all our brain processes, whether conscious, where I believe thoughts and ideas are housed, what we're processing, and more importantly for me, and I'll explain why later, the unconscious brain processes, where I believe emotions and feelings themselves are housed, among many other things. The largest part of the brain is the unconscious part. The minimal part, 10%, is talked about as the conscious. All of that obviously generates energy because currents are circulating and generating a field. Here, I'd also like to stress that your emotions are the most important, because they actually govern your so-called conscious thoughts. But nothing really comes from the conscious. Your free will may be getting its orders from the basement. I'm also going to explain later an experiment by Stephen Hawking that demonstrates this, that truly nothing in your life comes from the conscious. The conscious is governed by your subconscious, and your subconscious, housed in the unconscious, is driven by emotions. So it's very important to take care of your emotions and always give an emotion or an intention to what you say and what you think. Since every brain process generates an energy field, it will alter whatever is nearby, everything around you. Everything in the universe is energy, even matter. There are even theories about what we call consciousness. We think it's our self, or what some would call soul, that it is an electromagnetic field at quantum levels. Sounds heretical to the old paradigm, but let's keep going. We'll talk about that in another video so as not to make this one too long. Obviously, reasonable questions arise. Why would words have any effect if they're human inventions? How does water know that the characters GRACIIAS mean an emotion of gratitude and not the opposite? Why does it arrange itself in a certain way if it's something we invented and it's not in nature? This is where what's known as the collective unconscious comes in. This concept was first proposed by the psychoanalyst Carl Jung, founder of analytical psychology, in the mid-19th century. It refers to a dimension beyond consciousness that is common to the experience of all human beings. Just as there is an individual unconscious, acquired through lived experiences, the collective unconscious is a common platform composed of archetypes that shape our individuality. It's a universal and impersonal psychic system. It has common characteristics that exist independently of culture and the history of societies. It is an instance that transcends age, life, even death. It's an experience that has accompanied humanity since its existence. This helps us understand why people belonging to seemingly different cultures share certain soul-like characteristics, and why there are so many coincidences in recurring dreams, art, myths, and especially religions. Different cultures' religions are often representations of the same things, stemming from the sun, the stars, or certain symbols. This would explain those coincidences we cannot otherwise explain. According to Jung, just as we have inherited or learned behavior patterns, we also have instinctive behavior patterns, mediated by psychic activity totally outside our conscious control. This is anchored in the unconscious. The conscious also has purposes, intuitions, thoughts, feelings, etc. Everything you feel, express, decide, or choose, you do from the conscious part. But according to Jung, the unconscious also has all those processes. It also decides, also learns, also chooses, also wants, also desires within you. The collective unconscious is found in the plane of collective memory, and not only in human beings, but in the universe itself. So we must begin to think of the universe as an organism, not as a machine or simply matter. So laws are more like habits. What governs the universe, according to Jung, Our habits the universe got used to, learn it, to work, but they aren't hard limitations. This idea was also developed by William James, an American philosopher, and, in Germany, by Nietzsche, who believed in the natural selection of laws. Einstein has a phrase that coincides with all this. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Samuel Butler goes further. In addition to affirming that all life has an inherent unconscious memory, he says that atoms, everything that makes up the universe, also have a consciousness and an unconscious. Which doesn't sound so far-fetched if we consider the 100th monkey experiment carried out by Japanese researchers in 1952, where they isolated a certain number of monkeys, not precisely 100, it's just a label that got attached. Monkeys love sweet potatoes, or yams. The researchers would toss them on the sand. Since the food got sandy, the monkeys wouldn't eat them. Suddenly, one female, or one of them, decided to go to the sea and wash it. They had the water right there. The other monkeys next to them, let's say there were 100, learned by seeing that they could wash the sweet potatoes and eat them. They liked them, but the sand made them inedible. Washing solved it. When the number reached what we now call critical mass, the colony of monkeys, not only on that island but on other islands with no contact with them other than genetic heritage, also learned. All the others copied the pattern without even seeing it, and adopted the habit of washing their food, even when they didn't need to. They would go down and wash their food. Keeping in mind what we saw earlier, that thoughts and all brain processes are energy fields, this could help explain how this happens. All this occurred at the unconscious level. It's not that the monkey on another island imagined or dreamt of washing. Rather, the idea reached it through the subconscious, and the unconscious sent the message to the conscious saying, "I've got a great idea. Wash the food." And the monkey, in its world, believes it occurred to it in that moment because it's extremely intelligent, but in reality, it had already happened elsewhere. We must understand these energy fields on a global level, not just at the level of a country. This happens across the universe. We may be receiving, Tesla also said this, that he was just receiving. Tesla and Maxwell spoke as if someone or something gave them the equations, that they weren't the authors. Downloaded, inspired, you decide. It could be information from somewhere else. This applies not only to living beings, but to everything that exists. This is what Jung meant about the universe having habits. Its collective unconscious has habits. It's not merely conscious learning or a fixed law. Thus, there exists a collective memory that we all tune with our own new knowledge. What we learn, we emit to the universe. And this morphic resonance would give true meaning to Jung's collective unconscious. Seeing it this way, you both receive information and transmit information to the universe. And some other being out there can tune into it and understand it. We're talking about the brain, the unconscious mind, the conscious, the subconscious, etc. But what are they? What is that part of the mind or brain? Well, we can divide our mind into a conscious part and a subconscious part. They are part of the same thing, just one, but they operate differently. The unconscious mind is within the subconscious part, and it's the part with which we do activities automatically, without realizing it. For example, when you start to drive, at first you consciously learn and memorize all the steps you must take, shifting gears, engaging the clutch. You mechanize the process, but a point arrives when you're no longer thinking about doing it. It's automatic. Your body responds. It knows when to release the clutch, press the clutch, move the gear shift, turn the wheel, look at a mirror, automatically. This is handled by the unconscious mind. This opens the door to the fact that, through repetitions of conscious processes, you can program your unconscious. This is important to keep in mind for what we'll see next. Ideas, beliefs, our own personality, and the programming we've had since childhood are stored in this unconscious mind, and the strongest were assimilated during our first 7 years of life. They're patterns we repeat. Sometimes they affect us or keep us from advancing to our full potential. This doesn't mean they can't be reprogrammed, that we're doomed. Number it requires a certain discipline, repetitions, or techniques, like learning to drive, until the unconscious absorbs it and changes its form. The conscious mind is the rational mind. The ego may reside there. What we believe from physical experience identifies us. What we see and believe is real. Something very important to highlight here is that, thanks to an experiment by Stephen Hawking, which I mentioned earlier, and by other scientists, as well as advances in neuroscience, today we can assert that decision-making doesn't really reside in the conscious, even though we feel, see, and believe it that way. In reality, the unconscious makes decisions before we consciously make a decision. That's why it's important to turn toward the subconscious part of the mind and work on it. The subconscious mind accepts what is printed on it, from lived experiences, from genetic memory, or from universal memory, so to speak. It also accepts the learnings or creations of critical mass, the collective unconscious I mentioned earlier with the monkeys who learned without knowing where the knowledge came from. It arrives at the subconscious. This mind is completely autonomous. We cannot consciously control it in the moment and tell it, "Hey subconscious, I want you to think or feel this." It can't be done. It's completely autonomous, and it can steer our life. It can lead us to very good things, or for example, depression or illnesses of that kind have roots in the subconscious and can take us to places we really don't want to go. But even though it can steer our life, we can reprogram it through the techniques we're going to see.
If your life feels scripted, who's the writer behind the curtain? The subconscious mind responds to feelings. I think that's where feelings are generated. It is, let's say, a repetitive mind. It will attract experiences into your life, the same ones over and over, until, let's say, we understand. Message that part of the mind wants to give. And it will repeat, 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 and repeat, according to the beliefs we have, family situations. Everything that will define what our subconscious will bring as experiences, as lived events. It never rests, always in motion, operating and functioning according to our manifestations, whatever we are manifesting. It's important to keep in mind that any message imprinted on it is understood literally. The concept of negation is unnatural, so it doesn't enter its, let's say, dictionary. Besides, it runs on feelings and emotions. If you send a message with fear that says, "I hope I don't fall," the subconscious will interpret it as fall, simply fall, and you will fall. Fear prepares you physiologically for a dangerous event, so your subconscious will look for a way to create that dangerous event to justify that fear. You, consciously, are feeling fear, and the subconscious mind will look to give you what you need to justify that fear. The famous, "it's always right." The body keeps the score, and the subconscious writes it. Other words I'd put in quotes as forbidden to program your subconscious from the conscious are, for example, "I want X thing or situation." Why? Remember that the subconscious, the one that creates your reality, operates from emotion. Why might you want something? Because you don't have it. The subconscious will again look for a way to maintain that emotion. That is what's being imprinted. So it will try, by all possible means, to keep that from reaching your life so that the emotion of wanting is maintained. That's what you are programming. Wanting. Desire. Same case. I desire such a thing. It will keep you desiring it. I require some. Also reinforces wanting. I need. It will keep you needing something. I would like. It will keep pushing the objective farther away. Maybe you get closer and it moves away. You get closer and it moves away. Because you would like that, but you don't have it. Recommendations I'd give you to program consciously or subconsciously. You can use "I prefer." I prefer such a thing. I prefer to have abundance. Or I choose, I select, which is the same. I choose to have abundance. I choose to have health. I choose to be well. Because remember that all possibilities exist. Everything already happened. All the possible combinations of what will happen, happened, and will happen in your life. They are there, in a quantum field. So the only thing you can really do is choose, to make the decision to go one way or another. You're not forcing reality, you're dialing in a timeline. In other terms of belief, there is talk of a superconscious or a higher self. What I'm going to say next, I must clarify, is my personal opinion. If something in it serves you, take it. If something doesn't fit, that's totally respectable. Since it's my opinion, it is permeated by my beliefs and experiences, my experience on this plane, in this life. So I can't say that it's irrefutable. I believe that the superconscious or higher self is what we really are outside this dimensional plane. There, in another plane, before coming to experience here when we were born, we decided our, quote, destiny. Which doesn't mean we can't change it. There we agreed with the beings we've coincided with, our friends, to meet at a certain moment, to fight at a certain moment. We even decided things as strong as, I'm going to meet you in such a place at such a time, and you're going to assault me and take everything I have. Because all that has a purpose in your life. Nothing is bad in your experiences. They all have a purpose and a why. Even so, we can reprogram it. We'll see how. And by another plane or outside this plane, I don't mean that when we leave this plane, when we die, we will integrate into a being, a god, a universe, and we'll all be the same one. In my opinion, rather, that is what we already are at this very moment. Right now, while you're alive, you are experiencing only a part of reality, but the complete reality is beyond. Mathematics doesn't let us lie. There can be n dimensions, and they exist. There is already talk of multiverses, where I believe all the choices of our life are. The only thing we do when deciding an action is to jump from one dimension to another. But everything already happened. All possibilities, all events, everything that could have happened or will happen already exists. And since we are that superconscious as well, we can access it somehow. I think the subconscious it moves us in this plane and we can communicate there, through it. If the subconscious is the antenna, intention is your tuner. Let's remember that time is really an illusion or an invention we created to understand the process of experience, and so the decision that superconscious is making in a given moment lasts the same time as our entire life. And it's happening at the same moment that each instant here is happening. So it is instantaneous communication that modifies things. On this side, it can be years of life, and over there, 1 second, or vice versa. And that superconscious is the one that truly, let's say, rules our life through the subconscious. But that superconscious is on another plane. It's not as if we can see it in our brain. It is somewhere else. For example, when a very religious person prays, asking for something, a vision, they imprint an emotion in the subconscious so strong thanks also to the collective unconscious that they recite certain words that have great power, because the collective unconscious gave that word its power. Not because it's a magical combination, just as we have given the word thanks the meaning of gratitude and affection over water. Likewise, the word that this person is imprinting is imprinted in their conscious, and the subconscious would be the messenger that carries the request to the superconscious. And this superconscious is the one in charge of deciding at what moment that event will arise, whether experiences are still needed that it wants to live before that arrives, or if it decides now. That's why they say that God's timing is perfect, because we never know when we're going to be given what we're requesting. And here, I believe, what we're doing is sending a request to our superconscious, and this being, which is what we truly are completely, is the one that moves and chooses at what moment it will happen. But that it will happen. That's why we must be careful. Precise wishes, patient heart. The delivery is guaranteed. The schedule isn't. There's also a phrase sometimes used, be careful what you ask for. For example, a person who wants to have children and can't, then asks with great effort, emotion, even love, to have a child. Certain events have to be arranged for that to happen. Even if there is a biological impediment, sometimes it happens. And it turns out that at that moment, they no longer had a stable partner. Their financial situation wasn't good. For that person is the worst moment in which what they asked for could have happened. We must be very responsible with what we ask for. You must be 100% sure that you desire it, no matter what situation presents itself or the moment of your life. If you're going to ask for it, it's a responsible, permanent decision. All this that Dr. David Eagleman talks about, that what defines you, what you are, is mostly or practically 100% in the unconscious. When you make a decision or a conscious idea arises, it is not you, what you consider you, your ego, your conscious part, who is doing that action. The unconscious, or the brain, has been doing an impressive amount of work for hours or even days before you arrive with that idea or decision. And these are decisions as momentous as your profession, your partner, what you decided to do in the day, or what you decided to buy or not do in larger projects. Dr. Eagleman even says that statistically, people named Dennis or Denise are more likely to be dentists than others because the subconscious will seek to fulfill certain imprinted patterns. So it's as if the name Dennis brings dentist to the subconscious. Then it sends the conscious to take you toward becoming a dentist. Ask that person and they'll tell you they didn't make that decision because of their name. They'll say, I liked it. It caught my attention. But in reality, subconscious governed before the person consciously took decisions throughout their life and arrived at that point. Pattern first, story later. Your narrative often shows up after the choice. But as with everything in the universe and in physics, if A affects B, B affects A. So if our subconscious rules all our activities, decisions, experiences, if we begin in a disciplined way to carry out certain actions day by day, or preferably at all times, we can modify our subconscious. A very simple example. Let's say there is a person to whom everything goes wrong. They always have accidents. They are robbed, assaulted, beaten, etc. This has ruled their emotions since childhood, and everything will continue happening this way. Even their reactions in thought will have a pattern. For example, if they see a suspicious person, they'll fear being robbed. And guess what? They'll be robbed. Because as we saw at the beginning, the subconscious will look for a way to keep that fear supported. It can't have fear for being foolish. It's not because they're dumb. It's because something is going to happen. And so it will create the event so that this person is indeed robbed. And here comes the subconscious. In my theory, at the moment I'm afraid of being robbed, the other person, their subconscious, and my subconscious make an agreement. Hey, I'm feeling fear at this moment, and you're there. What's up? Will you rob me? Because otherwise I'm being foolish. I can't feel fear of something that doesn't exist. And then, if that other person decides to coincide, if their subconscious decides to coincide, at that moment, it happens. These are decisions already taken, because time doesn't exist. But they happen in the moment. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. It's a little complex. Maybe we can talk about time in another video. Spooky, or just entanglement, wearing a human face. This is why your destiny isn't already defined. In each moment you're defining it, even though it's already defined, because there is no time. Take the example of this person we mentioned, who has always been pessimistic, but they've been pessimistic because things have always gone badly. This person, with discipline, begins to have positive thoughts all the time. Even if they're robbed, run over, a dog pees on them, they keep saying, it's fine, because something better will happen. And of course, keeping in mind how the mind works, the subconscious will change and begin to bring positive experiences into their life. Yes, it requires discipline, or, as Ivan says, being stubborn. I like that way of seeing it, because a change of belief will always bring a challenge. The subconscious has an order. For example, in this person who always has bad outcomes, the subconscious says it must attract negative experiences because that's what is imprinted in their emotions. It has to sustain their fear, their frustration, their depression, their anger. It has to sustain it. It can't be feeling that for nothing. So, it will make everything happen that way. When repeated positive thoughts begin, repeated, the subconscious begins to receive that new programming. But the subconscious, like any intelligent being, and I believe intelligence is in everything, will defend its position. No, I'm not doing things wrong. I have to be experiencing these things. That's what I came for. So it will throw worse and worse things at you. There will be a critical point where it will get worse. The key is that even if it gets worse, keep that thought until we manage to imprint a new instruction in the subconscious that we want or choose positive events in our life. Then everything begins to change. That's how it is. It's a process that's a bit difficult because of that challenge that always comes with it. The storm before signal lock. Keep the dial steady. There's a famous example mentioned by many neuroscientists, Phineas Gage. He was a railroad construction worker in the United States. In 1848, while blasting part of a hillside that blocked the railroad path, something happened so that the dynamite detonated before he moved away, and an iron rod pierced his skull from the inside of his mouth out through the top of his skull. It didn't remain embedded. It simply passed through like a projectile. They attended to him. Medicine back then wasn't as advanced as today, and doctors were impressed that he remained conscious. He wasn't unconscious. He said he didn't feel much pain, only that he was weakened by the hemorrhage. They cleaned the wound, removed whatever metal might be nearby. Even brain matter had to be removed because it was, let's say, blasted. And they closed the wound. He lost an eye. There are photos of that person and that case. It is very, very well known in neurology. Curiously, in the first days, he did not recognize family or friends, but by the fourth day, he recognized everyone perfectly. He didn't seem to have lost memory. In fact, he knew everyone. He remembered his whole life, his whole past, all of that. But he began to have different attitudes. He had been a hard-working person with no problems like gambling, and he began to have the urge or desire to play cards a lot, to go to casinos, to be things he hadn't done before. What neuroscientists deduce today is that when his brain changed, his way of being changed. There are also cases of serial killers where they discover there was a tumor, some strange object invading the brain, and their behavior pattern changed immediately. There we also have proof that if the brain changes, your way of seeing life changes. Your way of seeing life changes, your brain changes. And if your brain changes, your reality changes, because your subconscious creates reality. It molds it. Your brain is really interpreting reality and creating and attracting experiences into your life. This brings in a new paradigm I'd like everyone to adopt. To be, to have, and to do. Instead of what we've had implanted, I have to do so that later I can be in order to have. That is, I have to study and work hard to be a doctor or whatever, so I can have a certain respect or a certain abundance. Number. We have to be abundant first in order to attract that abundance, and then do what we want. It's the other way around. Identity before strategy. The field tunes to who you choose to be. There are a couple of phrases I like a lot that define this conscious-unconscious part. One by Carl Jung that says, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know." And another by Pink Floyd that says, "There's someone in my head but it's not me." And in reality, that's how it is. Neuroscience is proving it more and more. Another important point to consider here is that we all act according to our Umwelt. Umwelt is a German term that refers to how each of us perceives reality. For example, imagine a dog suddenly asking itself what it would be like to live with a small nose like ours, without so many receptors, and not know that a cat was there 6 hours ago, or that the neighbor is 100 meters behind us. For them, it would be strange. How can you be here and not know this exists? We, in that same place, don't even think there could be the possibility of knowing that something had been there, or that someone is far away. That's how each individual's perception shapes the way we see the world. Each head is a world, as they say. I mentioned the Stephen Hawking experiment a couple of times. The experiment was broadcast by Stephen Hawking in the last series he recorded before departing. The episode can be found as a question: is everything predetermined? In a few words, he placed electrodes on the heads of the participants. They were in front of a display with a clock hand marking 0, 15, 30, 45, and 0 seconds. He asked them to decide to press a button at a certain moment and to note the position of the clock hand. I pressed it when it was at 15 seconds, or at 45, or at 60, or at 30. Those electrodes were connected to an EEG monitoring their brain activity. What it demonstrates, already studied and proposed earlier, is that although the person believes they are deciding in the moment, say, when it marks 15 seconds and they instantly press the button, the brain shows activity much earlier, many seconds earlier, which means the unconscious already knows what decision you are going to make consciously. Or, as Hawking explains, in reality the unconscious is making the decision and making you believe you are making it consciously. But in reality, you're not the one making it. And that's where the Pink Floyd phrase comes in. There's someone in my head, but it's not me. Is that individual the one making that decision? Who knows? Another person or yourself? I think it's yourself, just another part of your mind. Readiness potential, the backstage pass to free will. Another important experiment is the double-slit experiment, very well known, and it also appears in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know that I mentioned. It's an experiment that sought to see whether the photon or an electron was a particle or an electromagnetic wave, how it behaves. If you have a slit and throw particles through it, the pattern that will appear on a back wall will be a single line, approximately where the slit is, where the particle passes. If it's water, let's say, or an electromagnetic wave that generates waves, it will also be a single central pattern. If you put two slits and throw particles, it will leave two patterns, two lines. But if you send a wave, sound, or in water, easier to see, you'll get an interference pattern, various bands on the back wall. When they did the experiment, they believed the electron was a particle, a small portion of mass, of matter. When they send it through one slit, it leaves only one mark. When they put two, they realize various lines appear, so they say, how? Then it's a wave. Up to there, well, fine, it coincided. Then they said, como es y, so it's a wave, the particle behaves like a wave. But how if it's a piece of material? So they put in a measuring element, an observation device, to see what happens. Why? When you send a particle through the slit, it becomes a wave, an energy wave. And the curious, most impressive thing is that when they put the observation element, the electron behaves like particles and leaves only two marks. The electron realized it was being watched, so it didn't want to give away the secret of why it behaves like a wave, or something like that. The important thing here is to see that the simple act of observing an electron modifies its behavior. And if we consider that the electron is part of the atom, and the atom is part of all matter, and matter is part of everything that is real, then our simple observation modifies everything that exists, and you mold it to your will. The only thing is that it isn't to your conscious will. It is to the will of the subconscious. That's why it's important to program the subconscious. The universe is observer sensitive. So train the observer inside you. And well, the final purpose of this video was to explain how to use your Metayantra Pranic Device. Everything prior to this was to understand why what I'm going to recommend works. What you can do is one of the many uses it has. We'll make videos on all the uses that can be given, meditation, supporting the healing of certain illnesses, treating anxiety, specific intentions. What I'm going to ask you to do first, when you receive your device, is to take it with both hands, right palm over the left palm, with the device in the middle, obviously, and visualize or imagine. I know for many people it's not so easy to visualize. I'm one of them. Imagine a white light or white energy, pure, coming out of a sphere above your head and traveling through your head to your right hand. Feel that energy as much as possible, even if you don't perceive it. Try to imagine it. This is about imprinting an intention. Do all this while maintaining the intention you want to give the device and your life, and imagine imprinting that intention into the device. With all the strength of your thought, decide, choose to put your intention inside the device. Some people even come to feel a vibration in the device when they do this. Many people are very sensitive to this kind of energy. I don't doubt it. And remembering that your intention alters water by means of magnetic fields, then you've imprinted an intention into the device's memory and all its components. The device, let's remember, is a vibration amplifier. So, it's an amplifier of your intention. And well, what you can program is wealth, health, well-being, abundance, protection, harmonization. Whatever occurs to you, you can imprint it into your device And you can do it as many times as you want. Set the field. Let the field set you. Okay, that's the first step. After that, hang it around your neck and try to keep it as close as possible to the solar plexus, because that chakra is intimately linked with the subconscious, with our emotions. So what you'll be doing is sending that intention you imprinted on the device to the subconscious. You're delivering information directly to the subconscious. Look, in my case, Miguel is requesting from his conscious part. So conscious, subconscious are in communication the whole time you wear it. And just as you saw intention was printed on water through words, the entire molecular structure of the resin will hold that pattern, and, fed by the coil, it will be amplified. You can even do a water test. We're not going to use a dark field microscope, but you will notice that water freezes differently. Sometimes there are patterns like whirlpools. Sometimes there are layers, lines like rays going outwards. Here I leave some images, even of tests we've done. And you can do it very easily. Take your device, after you've already programmed your intention, put it in the freezer, place a glass of water above it, and wait 24 hours for it to freeze. Here I leave some images so you can see some examples. Ice crystals form, similar to Masaru Emoto's, but on a large scale. And every time you program your device with another intention, it isn't necessary. Verify that the pattern changes, so there is a change in vibration. The requirement is that once you put on the device, since the device affects water, it affects you. And let's remember that we are mostly water. Use the device for 3 days. In those 3 days, there has already been a harmonization. Both physical, many people have told us of symptoms. They feel electrical current, the urge to cry, that they feel a lot of energy, even if they are not very pleasant sensations. Bear with it for the 3 days, because there is a harmonization of the body and also of the subconscious. The subconscious is also sending messages and asking for certain things to be done so that what you requested works. In those 3 days, the subconscious, at the level of electrical impulses, has communicated with the device, affecting it as well. As we know, what goes out also comes back. So the subconscious has also imprinted a message, a vibration, in the device that we don't know, because the subconscious is the one that truly knows what we want. We think we know what we want, but the subconscious truly knows what we want. And there's also a very religious phrase, God's ways are mysterious. Or, the subconscious ways are mysterious. Because sometimes the subconscious is taking us to a much better place than the one we want. But we must go through certain situations we don't like. And by rejecting those situations, we are not reaching a level we could reach of great well-being for us. It is important to receive that message from the subconscious in the device and keep it there. And well, here comes the point of programming your energizing water, which is why we've been talking about water since the beginning of the video. What you're going to do is place your device on a nightstand, near where you're going to sleep. That's important. Do it while thinking about your intention, without reprogramming the device. Just thinking about your intention, and place a glass of water or a bottle of water on top of the device, front the side that normally faces outward when we wear it facing upward. What happens here is a kind of let's make an agreement, because the unconscious is always active. It never stops. But let's say at night it opens. That's why sometimes there are dreams we don't understand. We find ourselves asking, what was that? Why a spider? Strange things. But they are really messages from the subconscious. The conscious opens and begins to send messages. This is the natural way to communicate with the conscious. But well, we'd have to be experts to understand all the messages it is sending and follow them, so things go better for us. At night, the subconscious opens. The device is connected with the subconscious at that moment, because there's also a phrase in quantum physics I find beautiful. Once something united at some moment, it never separates. Even if they move apart physically, they're always united. There is always a quantum entanglement. And speaking here of electromagnetism and energy, that entanglement is more than evident. So what happens is, the conscious opens and begins to send messages to the device as well. Besides sending them to our conscious through dreams, it sends them to the device. That's why many people who have the device under the pillow or near them while they sleep have lucid dreams or remember their dreams more. They have that sensation of remembering better because in reality, there is more precise communication and it remains recorded in the device. And then it will program the water, as we saw that every vibration affects the molecular structure of water. Unfortunately, the only way to see that molecular arrangement is by freezing the water. You don't need to freeze it daily. Simply know that it is arranging itself molecularly and that water is being programmed so that it contains information that comes from your subconscious with the help of the message you gave it at the beginning by programming your device from your conscious, let's say, uniting the subconscious with the conscious, so that during your day, your subconscious operates for your good, or for what you want your day, let's say, or your life. Remembering that we are mostly water, so when you drink that water in the morning, the first thing you do is drink the water feeling gratitude. What you're doing is accepting that message from the subconscious. And besides, your whole body is being imprinted with that vibration, with that petition from the subconscious. Let's do this. That's why I say it's like make an agreement overnight. Okay, we're going to do this. Great. And, well, this water programming is being done from your conscious to your subconscious, and from your subconscious to your conscious. So everything will be more in harmony, and we will begin to erase patterns, let's say, of conflict, where the conscious isn't united with the subconscious, and they aren't operating in sync. There will be harmony, and everything will flow better and better. Night, your lab. Morning, your installation. So do this experiment for a couple of months and tell us here in the comments what you've perceived, what you felt, and whether you felt any of these effects people mention. Vibrations, electrical sensations, or lucid dreams when you have the device nearby. Tell us, so we can keep learning more about what is happening. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. We hope you liked it. It's in a slightly different format, but well, the information is what matters. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you very soon.